So this is the first look at the new Stihl BR 800. It's the 3rd of December now. This is the very first one in the UK, I think. So what we're going to do is just have a quick look at it, and the backpack bar I normally have is the 600, so we're just going to compare the two in a bit of a blow-off. All I know about this blower is from what I've seen on American YouTubers. The big feature of it is the fact that you can start it with it on your back. Other than that, you start it exactly the same way. So let's see what it can do. So that's these thick leaves, that's about as far as it will go. So what's that? 1, 2, 3. So it's blown these thick leaves about 3 meters away. So I guess what we should do now is test it against the BR 600 Magnum. Now the only difference is on this one is I've cut the end off just to prevent the fatigue in my shoulder after a long day. Works quite well, doesn't really take away too much power, I don't think, but we'll give it a test anyway. I don't think there's a great deal in it as far as shifting the stuff near to you. I think with this you definitely get the stuff further away, but I would imagine that's more to do with the nozzle, the fact that the nozzle's longer on this one. So when I first used a 600, and I've always used 600s on the golf course and before I got my one, I've never used a 700, but great power, but it was always sort of fighting you and it was always pushing you back. I've been using this solidly for a week now and I've not had any of those issues. It is a kilogram or two heavier, I believe, but it seems to sit on the back a lot more comfortable. It doesn't move around. It isn't always pushing and pulling on the shoulder, and you know, fatigue isn't a problem. What also happens quite well is that, you know, and I'll try and demonstrate it as best I can, is that the blower actually sits comfortably at about this height, a little bit higher when there's air going through it. But what that actually means is you only need to just direct it. You're not actually holding it and gripping it and trying to keep it in the same position. So that has really saved my fatigue during the, you know, an 8-hour day of just doing leaves. I'll try and demonstrate that. I love that feature. So I was lucky enough to use this blower for the majority of the autumn. And one of the first observations is it is bigger, it is heavier. But when it's on your back, it feels lighter, it's much more comfortable. And you suffer a lot less fatigue, particularly in that right shoulder, which is something we'll all be grateful for, particularly in the middle of the leaf clear-up season, or the scarifying season, clearing up all that moss and thatch. But the big feature, the one everyone's interested in, is the new pull start. And I'll be honest, there is a knack to it, and it takes a little bit of getting used to. But once it's on your back and you've used it a few times, it becomes pretty simple as to what you need to do. So the main example I've heard people talk about when describing the new blower with its new feature is that you'll be out doing some work and then a client comes out and they want to speak to you, and you can now shut the blower down, have your conversation and start it up without taking it off your back, which I've used it and it is fantastic. And not only does it save that annoyance of having to do it, but it also saves you that fatigue of having to keep taking the blower off, but it also just saves you a little bit of time. However, while I was using it, I came across two other examples which I thought were a little bit more relevant. One of them was if you were working with somebody else and you wanted to get their attention just to give them some information. It meant that you didn't obviously have to keep taking it off to start it back up, or back up to someone close to you and ask them to start it for you. So it just meant you were a little bit more productive in what you were doing. And another example would be if you had finished your job, you were just picking up the last tools and walking back to the van, and then you noticed maybe something you'd missed, or when you put the mower back into the van that a little bit of grass had fallen onto the drive, that without taking the blower off to start it up, you could just deal with that little issue and then be on your way. So not only is it the fatigue, but I think it's just making you a little bit more productive throughout the whole day. So this has been my little review video for the Stihl BR 800. I hope you've enjoyed watching and found it relevant and maybe helpful. So all it leaves me to say is thank you for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.